Transfer portal losers. LSU, how in the world did you guys wind up on this list? They got the 16th best portal class in the SEC, which last time I checked is how many teams we have in this conference total. So dead last, and this is not a situation where a team was stocked up and they didn't need anybody. LSU needed players. LSU didn't get a single kid in the post-spring portal window, and they needed them. They needed them on defensive line specifically. Now, I said the other day on the show that holistically, I believe in what Brian Kelly was selling in that Jacques Doucet interview that he did, where he said, we're not going to go out and overspend. We're not in the business of buying players. Holistically, like in a generic sense, rip the LSU logo off his chest, just pretend that's Coach X saying that. I believe in that. But there could also be a couple of other things in play here. Number one is maybe you took a swing and you missed it, guys, and now you're speaking like that when in reality you spent money on the guys that you did go get. But I also understand the counter to that is, yeah, but we didn't overspend. These guys we would have needed to overspend to get. Fair enough. Fair enough. I also said, and I maintain this, that I think there was some discombobulation from the collective's point of view, and I'm not talking about pulling your pockets out and finding lint. I ain't talking about being a poverty program or anything like that. I'm talking about communication. I'm talking about alignment. I'm talking about messaging, and I have good reason to believe that. So anyway, that makes LSU a loser in the spring portal window. Now, I'm going to talk about LSU a little bit later in the show, and it's going to be in a different vein because I got a lot to say about a lot of SEC teams, but didn't think we'd be here, but we are here. Got to put them in the loser category for the spring portal cycle. Michigan State, absolutely unequivocally, a transfer portal loser. Now, this was a little bit more expected, but Michigan State got ravaged. You know, I spoke a little while ago in a very regrettable segment about how this was going to be just a wild, chaotic spring portal window, and some of those parts didn't happen. I said some teams are going to get gutted. Well, Michigan State did get gutted. They lost their entire starting defensive line. They lost 6 blue chippers, 21 kids left in the spring portal window. That's your last gasp. You can't really do anything to backfill those. So Jonathan Smith came in. I think you've heard me hint at this a few times throughout spring, and really even before spring ball opened. I said they are learning on the fly at Michigan State what it takes to run a high-level collective NIL portal operation because they didn't have it at Oregon State. They just didn't. And I said, I don't think that's going to be an overnight thing. Now, long-term, I actually have always thought Michigan State's one of the more underrated programs in college football where they do have a little bit deeper a pocket than folks would realize. They have a higher potential than folks realize. But, man, and look, they've got a really, really good head coach there. But in year one, just a few months in, it was going to be hard to keep that roster intact. And they didn't. That's no knock on him either. That just is what it is. I think most new staffs would have probably suffered the same fate. Colorado. I'm interested to know what you guys think about this. Do you call Colorado a portal loser? Because they didn't strike out or anything like that. But the thing is, with Colorado, you have to talk about them in their own context because they are a portal-centric team. None of these other teams are. Even the most extreme leaners on the portal, like Ole Miss, for example. Ole Miss is averaging like a top 25 recruiting class. Colorado's nowhere near that. So Colorado being portal-centric, number one, it's a loser because unless you land multiple elite-level talents, you don't have recruiting to fall back on. This is where you've got to be getting your players. And this class was not jaw-dropping, especially the post-spring portal window. I think they added one kid who was 4-star or higher. And conversely, they lost guys like Dylan Edwards, Amarian Cooper. Like, they lost good players. And I'm not sure that they backfilled them with a ton of difference makers. They backfilled them with guys who'll start, but that's because there's no other option there. So I stopped short of calling Colorado a portal loser because they added some good football players. But the goal out there is not to go to a bowl game. By their own admission, by their own statements, it's not to go to a bowl game. They want to contend for a playoff spot. I don't know that they got the football players to do that. That's just where I sit post-spring. Oregon State, you know, this was kind of more expected. Oregon State ceased to exist at the major college football level, and they lost Damian Martinez most recently. But listen to this. Post-it pop here. The players they lost Here's the schools that the players that Oregon State lost went to: Miami, FSU, Texas, Michigan State, Oregon, USC, Michigan State again, USC again, Tennessee, Michigan State a third time, FSU again, and Pitt. So this was not one of those cases where they had guys cut loose from there and go down a level. If anything, they had a lot of good players on that team, and some of them went with their former staff to Michigan State, but others just proliferated a whole lot of rosters that are going to be in playoff contention this year. So I got to put Oregon State in there as a loser, and I'm putting Clemson in there as a loser. Clemson, Army, Air Force, and Navy, the only 4 teams to not take a single player out of the portal. I know they've got their philosophy. I got mine too. So I'm all for you defining your principles and sticking to them. And I've said before, I think it would be a fascinating conversation to have that man right there, to have Dabo Swinney on the show. Because I got a couple of different ways I think about this. So I'm going to use this word again. Holistically and generically, I feel like you should never lean on the portal. I feel like it should be a supplemental tool for you, which is how most successful coaches are using it. I absolutely think that you can define your culture any way you want to, and if it's defined the right way, there are going to selectively be options for you in every portal window, okay? Right now, the way that it's presented at Clemson is we've got our principles and values, which I respect, but they're so hard and fast that there's no addition from the portal that could ever warrant consideration from us. That's how it feels. I know no one has said that, and it's not even paraphrased. That's how it feels. And I don't think it is a sound approach. I just don't. I don't, because you compete against Miami and Florida State, and they're killing it in the portal. And they don't hurt in recruiting either, but they're killing it in the portal. And so, yet again, this cycle, to give you an idea, they had 12 guys leave. They added none. In the past, the response has been, well, you're not telling the whole story. We didn't have the roster space to add them, to which I've always said there's a way to create roster space, to which some people have said, yeah, but that's unethical, to which I've said, okay. But my approach there, or my feel there, is not even a one-year thing. You could explain away 1 year or any given year. This is a philosophy that I just don't happen to really align with. But the theory around it, I do align with, because Dabo would sit right here. There's not enough room at this table, but if we were at a bigger table, Dabo would say, hey, I've got my way of doing things, and he wouldn't say this next part, but it would be true. My way has been successful. I have shut y'all up before. I have dunked on your faces multiple times before, so you don't need to be questioning me. My way works. His way has worked. He would be right. I am now speaking for him. He would be right. My only follow-up would be, does approach that is sound in 2015 still qualify as sound in 2025? And I'm not sure that the answer is yes across the board there. So Army, Navy, Air Force, Clemson. Those are the 4 that didn't take a single player. I don't know.